Welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers, election special. I'm Mark Owen, editor and owner of PunchlineGloucester.com, and over the next half hour, my panel of business experts will discuss the election results and the ramifications for all of us here in Gloucestershire. But before I start, I'd just like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors. Okay, let's meet the panel. We've got Neill Ricketts, he's the chair of the Forest of Dean Economic Partnership and Graphene Guru. We've got Ian Mean, director of Business West and ex-editor of the Citizen Echo and Western Daily Press. And finally, we've got Sam Holliday, business development manager of the Federation of Small Business. Okay, let's see what's making the headlines. We have to put the caveat in there that these are obviously predictions probably from yesterday. So let's have a look. The Sun, sorry, it's not the Sun, it's the Mirror. Landslide. The Exit Factor, Keir Starmer. The Sun, Britain sees red. The Daily Express, crushing blow to Tory party in election wipeout. The Labour landslide, says the Eye. The Guardian, huge Labour majority predicted by exit poll, where we know what happens. And the Daily Mail, Labour set for historic landslide. What's really interesting there, guys, is look, 410 seats they predicted, and I think it's 409 as we stand, and 131 for Conservatives. The Daily Star, 14 years in charge, those good bits in full. And we'll be picking out our most popular blunders. Okay, who should we start this morning? There's so much to talk about, so much to get through. Okay, come on, Neil. We'll start with you. Let's talk about our local elected MPs first of all. You're in the Forest of Dean. Mark Harper going.
Yeah,
was it a surprise?
Yeah, no, I don't think it was a surprise. It was always going to be close. I just feel that they just didn't try hard enough. I just, they lost by a couple of hundred votes. I mean, could they have found that couple of hundred votes? I mean, there's rumor that, that they were worried about Mark losing his seat. It should have been a relatively strong seat. It has been, I think it was 2005 he came in. But just he didn't engage with the business community. To be fair, Labour didn't either. I just think that it's a protest vote, and unfortunately, Mark is one of a number of senior MPs, including Richard Graham, which I'm sure one of the other guys will talk about, who has lost. And I just don't feel like the whole election campaign was good enough. I'm sorry.
Well, let's be honest about it. The whole election campaign was a shower of shit, just like it's been over the last couple of years. It was an absolute disaster from the moment that Sunak stood outside in the pouring rain with no umbrella, and it was all downhill from there. It never improved, did it? So I'm going to go over to you, Sam. Thanks, Neil.
Yeah, I think just picking up on the Forest of Dean, I do, because it was so close, Neil. I wonder whether the Tories struggled a bit because Mark Harper was so much on the national TV. Every time I put the telly on, he seemed to be there. He was one of the most credible speakers, I think. And so I think by being so far out of the constituency, if he'd have been back in the constituency, maybe he'd have won a few more votes. But
I agree.
All of these candidates that we've seen across the country, it's been a remarkable night. But we have to give massive congratulations to Keir Starmer for turning around the Labour Party as he has done. I remember in 2019, people were saying that Labour would never get an election again, and now it's won by a huge landslide. But I will say one slightly worrying thing, like you, I'm looking at the TV, watching the figures coming through. Labour only got 34% of the vote. Now, I've always been a massive supporter of first past the post. To me, that's what British elections are all about. But that has got to be the biggest argument for PR ever. 34% of the vote, and you win a landslide. That doesn't sit right with me, I don't think.
I'm not sure about changing the political electoral system myself at this particular moment.
I think that's an important point. I think, if Labour think that this is a true landslide in terms of percentage, then it's not. It's a vote, and they've got the seats. Now they have, their election term to turn it around and show us what they can do. Otherwise, I think actually we're going to see more votes going to other parties other than Labour and Conservative.
Okay, let's bring Ian into the conversation. Good morning, Ian. Thanks for joining us.
Morning. Yeah, my take on our MPs, I got it wrong when we did our previous election briefers about Richard Graham. I didn't think he'd lose. Be interesting to hear from you as you were there a bit later on. He's a very, very good MP. But when we did our hustings the other evening, I was very, very impressed with Alex McIntyre, the Labour guy. I agree with what's been said about Mark Harper. He appeared on every TV and radio programme virtually throughout the whole situation. What did he do locally? I wouldn't have thought too much, and I think that's a sad situation. One thing I think isn't sad is the demise of Robertson in Tewkesbury. This guy, I mean, remember he had, I think last time he polled about 26,000 votes. He lost to the Lib Dems. In my view, he won't be missed. In Stroud, Siobhan Bailey, good MP, but she got caught up in the national tide. Those are the sort of main areas. I think we've got a new order in terms of voting and election. We've now got almost 5 parties. And what
I tell you, let's move. Sorry to stop you there, Ian. Let's carry on talking about our own individual candidates, our Gloucestershire candidates, because obviously Alex Chalk has gone again. Let's talk about Alex, because I think we'll all agree he was a really nice chap.
Yeah, Alex, a very, very good MP, a very good Justice Minister. What has happened there is that Max Wilkinson, who used to work for me as a reporter on the Echo, has got in. But Lib Dems have always had a very strong stronghold around there. And the only real survivor, Mark, is the Sir Geoffrey Clifton Brown. You know, Sir Geoffrey's always been there.
Okay.
Go on, Sam. What do you think about Alex? Yeah, Alex Chalk was. I think when an election like this happens, then you're caught up by the. I don't care how popular you are locally, you're caught up by what happens nationally, and so good people go, and bad people sometimes stay in. And I mean, I've got to be honest. If I was a Tory, I would think that the best result today was Liz Truss losing, because that is when the Tories started to implode. I mean, for her to lose her seat is remarkable. She walked off stage without saying a word, apparently, which says everything you want to know about that woman. Whereas people like Alex Chalk, people like Richard Graham, will have shown great humility. And I agree with Ian. I think I know Siobhan a little bit, and I've been very impressed with her work in Stroud. Stroud is not a natural Tory area, let's be honest. So for her to be a Conservative MP there, I think she's done very well. But the Tewkesbury result, as Ian was saying, really has taken us all by surprise. I think we did this at the start of the election, if you remember, Mark. We all made our predictions. We spoke about Tewkesbury very quickly because we were all convinced it'd be a Tory win. So that shows how seismic it's been. But coming back to Alex and indeed Richard, 2 very good guys who've done a lot of good work for the constituency. And I wish them well, and I wish their replacements well. You were right. I saw the thing you two did, Mark and Ian, with the Gloucester hustings, which is great. I was impressed with both candidates and Rebecca, and I came away thinking, well, got to be honest, whoever wins, I think Gloucester's in safe hands, so that's good.
Okay, let's talk about Richard Graham. I was there last night. I'll be perfectly honest; it's pretty upsetting. He'd been the MP for 14 years. I've known him a long time as well, and it was a complete, I think, a bit of a surprise, to be honest with you. When I got there around 2 o'clock in the morning, and there was another 2 hours to go.
Interrupt, but when they did the exit poll, the first time they went round all the seats, and Jeremy Vine was going round, these are the seats that would fall. Gloucester wasn't that high in the list, so I thought he's in trouble. It was also noticeable. Whereas people like Forester Dean, all that was way down the list, but not Gloucester.
Well, I think what happened actually in Gloucester was the Reform candidate. And if you watch the video interview I did with Richard at the end, which I'll post on later on today, excuse me, he does actually mention the people who voted Reform. And there were 7,000 of them in Gloucester. And it was only a 3,000 between Labour and Gloucester. And that's really why he lost the seat. But he was very gracious in his speech. He was very humble as well, and it was a very impactful speech as well. And I must admit, after I'd known him for quite some time. It was a quite difficult interview I did with him after the election as well, but maybe I'm not hardened up for this game enough. And it's funny how many, over the next 5 years, how many times when Max Wilkinson is mentioned, Ian will say he used to be a reporter for him. We'll see. So Neil, you know Richard really well as well.
I know Richard.
Were you expecting that?
Well. I wasn't. No, but I'm looking at the figures. You need to look at the underlying data, as Ian said. You know, Lib Dems. You know, if you look at the rise of the other parties, that's the influential thing. Richard lost because of the increase in reform, and you know, this was a social media campaign. I mean, they were good at it, and you know, if you look at the worry for me is if you look at Cotswold North, it's a very slim majority with Labour, with Lib Dems taking a 10% increase. You know, so I think we're seeing a massive swing in politics, and you know, over the next election term, Labour's going to have a really tough time. The economy's not in a great place. There's war in Europe. These are not easy times to lead. And then you've got these up and coming parties, Green, Reform, Lib Dem. I think they're a major challenge to the two-party system we've had for hundreds of years.
I'm going to go and ask Ian actually as well, because let's be honest, having Farage within the House of Commons, that's going to make it interesting. You've got Corbyn there, you've got Farage in there. Well, you could have had Galway in there. Thankfully, he's not. But there we go. Ian, what do you reckon? Is it going to be fun for us journalists?
Yeah, who's been the star of this election? Whether you like him or not, it's Farage. He's an amazing speaker. He's going to light up the Commons. What he says is basic stuff. Yes, there's some oddballs in his operation. Of course there are. Neil's right. You know, there are now sort of 5 parties, and we're going through a seismic shift in our politics. The big thing for me is one word: trust. When I sort of employ reporters, I sort of have 2 tenets. I used to say that one is trust and the other's accuracy. The Conservative Party everyone lost trust in them, just didn't trust them. And I remember many years ago, as a young reporter on the Daily Mail, the night news editor said to me, Ian, when you interview politicians, look them in the eye, because generally they're not telling the truth. And I'm afraid that's what a lot of people think.
Well, I totally agree. In fact, let's go over, right? Let's pick out our favourite blunders of the Tory party. We could even do it from the blunders of the Tory party over the 14 years, because there are so many, or we could do it for the blunders of this election. Why don't we do it first? Blunders of the first 14 years, and then blunders, each of us, what is our top pick blunders for just the election? Okay. Neil, I'm going to start with you. Come on.
I mean, there's so many to choose from. It's ridiculous. I mean, I think for me, I'm not going to go through the last 14 years. I'm just going to concentrate on the election. And for me, to start the election campaign when none of your other people know what's going on, it came as a massive shock, except for obviously those that were betting. But to start your campaign outside Number 10 when you've spent millions of pounds on a press centre, it just looked terrible. I'm sorry, but it looked terrible and it looked pathetic from the start. He looked like a drowned rat, and I don't know whether he was going for the sympathy vote, but it looked doomed from that moment on, and it never got any better. I mean, the D-Day, I think the D-Day thing was a massive blunder. I think, you know, the memes and all the cartoons that came out where he managed to stand underneath the wrong signs, you know, the exit sign, putting a life jacket on in Belfast. You know, you could write a book on how not to run an election campaign. I just don't think he wanted the job. They even put the Union Jack upside down on one of the shows. You know, you just literally could not make it any worse. And the real one for me was when they tried to feed some sheep in Wales, Okay, and all the sheep ran away, and they called it a landslide. I thought that was it. I thought, as far as I was concerned, it wasn't going to get any better than. And I just think he's out of touch. I think I don't. I got to be honest. I don't. I've never really warmed to him since he took the entrepreneurs relief away. But I think he's had a difficult job to do. But I think he's completely unrelatable to 99.9% of the population.
And I tell you what he didn't do. I mean, I met him as well. He didn't. He just wasn't a warm character. He wasn't interested in the rest of the people. I don't know. Sam,
Yeah,
what's your
Yeah,
sorry? Sure.
I think Neil summed it up perfectly. I mean, I think I think it's the worst political campaign I've seen since Labour in 1983, which ages me a bit, where Michael Foot was in charge and they were just all over the place, and you just knew from day one they were going to lose. At the opening speech in the rain, but you know what? I will say one thing. I did feel a bit sorry for him because I've never seen a party leader have so little support from his candidates. I had my letter through the door as a Gloucester resident from Richard Graham. He never mentioned Rishi Sunak's name. He never mentioned the Tories. He just talked about his own record. They'd abandoned Rishi Sunak. So he was very, very isolated. So I'll give him that. But you asked about the biggest blunder in 14 years. It's 2 words. It's 2 words. And let me tell you a very particular example. 6 months to the day, my house flooded, right? And I still haven't got a kitchen. It's still taking all this time to get it sorted out. I was on the verge of moving house, and I'd sold my house and it was all going through. And then Liz Truss got elected, mortgage rates went through the roof. I lost my buyer. So I've got a particular reason for being pleased that she lost this morning, but it's just been like that for 14 years. There's been ups and downs. There's been good people, there's been bad people. But I don't think Rishi Sunak was the worst of them. I think we should give him some credit for what he did during COVID. We had the best. I think we did.
Eat out. I've got to be honest, Sam. I've got to stop you. Eat out or help out, or was it?
I'm going to put a hand on my heart and say I supported that. I went into local Gloucester resident, maybe, but you just look at what we did with the coronavirus support for business. Apart from the self-employed, I know that was his big failing, but a lot of businesses survived because of the money that we got through furlong. Best, most generous in the world. So I'm going to give him that credit. But as a leader, no, he just wasn't strong enough.
I don't think they ever really explained enough that the furlough scheme needed to be paid back.
Yeah,
at the very beginning, they should have banged on and say, look, you're all living at home, you're all, your jobs are all being saved, but guys, this has got to be paid back enough. Ian, what's your number one blunder or number of blunders?
Well, as a journalist, when he came out of Downing Street in the rain, I wrote a headline on a piece of paper. And, that was the worst possible start. He looked like a drowned rat, and it then got worse and worse. But the real blunders for me have been the way that the Tory party hasn't supported him. And also, he has, as Neil says, he's very, very much out of touch with the whole sort of situation. So the thing is, the Tory party is split so many ways. It sort of changes every day. The guy did a great job with the furlough scheme. He really did. And that was brilliant. But he was never, ever a leader. Never.
He's an accountant and a manager, really. I'm going to come in here. I think the 2 things really: the Tory constant infighting and party eating itself.
Yeah.
I think we all just got sick of. We got sick and tired of them, of their own self-importance and the infighting and of course the re-elections. Trying to elect a new leader, and that was all very toxic as well. But for me, the real starting point was Boswell Castle during the COVID. I think that was the undoing of them all, because suddenly Cummings, that wasn't handled very well. You should have sacked him or put him on garden leave or investigated it. And then also with the party, actually in 10 Downing Street. Again, those 2 things, I think suddenly everyone's, Boris lost his magic touch, his allure. And of course, then he went to the House of Commons and he lied. He lied and he lied and he lied, and it was so plain for us all to see. And I think the one thing about Brits is that we don't like liars.
No.
We don't mind chances, but we don't like liars. We like the truth, really. And I think those two things, especially the infighting as well, and the constant sniping, the constantly ripping each other apart, was just too much. We can't stomach it. And I do think that's why people just said, you know what? I've had enough. I want somebody else. It doesn't matter. I don't think many people like Starmer that much, to be honest with you. And this is why, as you're right, Neil, the reform has done so well, because I still maintain that Nigel Farage is the most influential politician that we've had in this century. No matter
I
whether
heard
you
a
like
question
him
on
or
the radio
don't.
this morning, Mark, but when I woke up, I heard a question on the radio and I thought it was interesting. They said, has Labour won this election or have the Tories lost it? Which is the most dominant factor? And I think there's something in that. And do you know what the one really worrying thing for me, which we should all be worried about? The turnout has been appalling. There used to be a general sense that not many people vote in council elections, but come a general election, they'll all come out. 80% we used to see. We're seeing 45s and 50s, and that means half the country that could vote hasn't bothered. Now, what does that tell you about what they're being offered? I think that's really worrying. That's not good for democracy. It's not good for democracy.
The overall count was 60%, which was 10% down roughly, wasn't it?
10%. And that, I think that's because people just don't. Yeah, I think that's worrying. This is what I said earlier. I think PR means more. If I'm a Green voter and there's millions of Green voters all around the country who've ended up with 2 MPs, is that fair?
Yeah,
Well,
let's go to the Liberal Democrats for a second, okay? Because obviously we've had Sir Ed Davey. He's been touring around the country. They're calling him Sir Ed Alton Towers or something with all the stunts and things he's done. I mean, I met him 3 times. I really like the guy myself, and I think he's run a fantastic campaign. Absolutely fantastic. He managed to get the media attention that a third running party needed to. I mean, what do you reckon, Neil? What's your take on it? Did he go too far in the end? Did he appear to be a bit of a clown, or you know?
I think, to be honest, I think everybody was looking for an alternative to the 2 main parties, and there's the old adage, Ian will know, there's no bad news, and he needed to raise his profile. So if you look at the number of gaffes, was him, falling off his paddleboard, a good thing or a bad thing? Hey, actually, I want my MP and I want my government to understand what's going on in my life. And I paddleboard. So I was like, yeah, if you go on a paddleboard, you're going to fall off no matter how good you are. And do I like the fact that he's quite relatable? Yeah, I think I can't see Rishi Sunak getting on a paddleboard, can you? I mean, I remember, Cameron always used to be seen going into the sea, didn't he, when he went on holiday with his kids and stuff. And I just think, I mean, you talk about Farage. I know we're talking about Liberals, but Farage did an interview on YouTube, and I'm not a great Farage lover, but it was a really good interview, and it was very relatable. And I think Keir Starmer has also, to a certain extent, done so. I listen to Chris Evans in the mornings when I'm on the school run and stuff like that. And Chris Evans invited all the politicians onto the show, and Keir Starmer came on the show, and he made some controversial comments about family life, but he was really relatable. Rishi never bothered, and to me, that's I don't care how busy you are, that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Well, I think that with Rishi, sorry, I think with Rishi, it's all about control. It's all about control. He just would not let go. Same as when I went for a meeting with him. I mean, we were locked in a cupboard, for Christ's sake, all the media together. You couldn't go out and film. You couldn't take photographs. I mean, we live in a bloody democracy, for Christ's sake. It was terrible. Sorry, Ian. What were we going to say?
Right. Talking about Ed Davey, I mean, that was, whether you like it or not, yes, he did look like a clown, but as Neil said, it was very effective. But one of the big things that came over for me, he has a handicapped son, as you probably know. He did a very big interview about social care. I thought that was really important. A lot of politicians wouldn't have dared go there. So, and they've got a tremendous response from the whole of the Southwest. They really have. And they're just not all NIMBYs.
No, I think the party has changed a lot since the sort of 90s and stuff, and they've learnt a lot of lessons with Nick Clegg, didn't they? After they made all the promises that they didn't deliver, that's why they sort of got pushed out. Okay, let's move on then to the Labour Party itself and their promises. Okay, because they promised so much. I mean, Rachel Reeves, I mean, said 6,000 teachers, 40,000 doctors and nurses. Now, okay, five. Oh, I mean, it's all pie in the sky. Go on, Neil, help me out.
But do we think the Labour government's going to run its entire term without a vote of no confidence? I mean, they've got a huge majority, but we are starting to see a groundswell of public opinion, protesting, etc. If they don't deliver on the promises that they've made, I mean, where are they going to get 6,000 teachers from? They're just not there. They just don't exist, and they're not going to exist for the life of this term. I think they'll very, very quickly find out that running a government is extremely hard work. They haven't got the experience, and they haven't got the seniority within their politicians to be able. It's not like that they haven't run a government for 14 years. This is tough times for them. You're going to see whether Keir Starmer has got it to be a leader. And I think the biggest problem the Conservatives had is Rishi Sunak was not a leader. He didn't lead from the front. It was not a cohesive party to go at this, and that's why they've lost. And I think Keir Starmer needs to be very, very careful that they deliver on what they've said they deliver on.
I slightly disagree with you both, actually. I don't think they've promised very much at all. I've got to feel the main policy that the Labour have won is they're not the Tories. I hate to say it. And as for Keir Starmer, I'll give him some credit. I think the Labour Party in 2019 was extremely, very left-wing. It was momentum was very strong. He hasn't messed about. He's kicked out some high-profile people. He kicked out Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Jeremy Corbyn won his seat last night, but he's one person. I think he's quite a strong character. And I don't know much about his cabinet, I've got to be honest with you, but I think Keir Starmer might turn out to be quite impressive. But I don't think there are many promises. I really don't. And I don't think people voted for those promises. They voted to get rid of the Tories in the best way they could. Simple as.
Well, a very good point. Ian, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's all right. The big test is going to come with their budget, of course, which is probably sort of September, October. There's been a conspiracy of silence, really. Sam says from Labour. When they start talking about council tax or whatever, or not talking about it, you've got a problem. I think to even get near what they're promising, they need 2 total terms of Parliament to do this. And I just don't see it. I'm very involved with things in the health service. These figures and appointments are just not achievable. So, that's an untruth. It may be said in the best circumstances, but it's not true. So I think that they are going to find it very, very difficult. But from a business point of view, I think, from Business West point of view, we look forward to trying to work with them because the Tories had no business plan. Jonathan Reynolds, one of the Labour industry people, seems very good. Yeah. And I think we've got to really take them as we see them. But I think they're going to find it extremely difficult.
No, I totally agree. And it's the same thing with building houses. They're supposed to build 1.6 million houses in this parliament, right, over the next 5 years. Well, they haven't, I think it's 1.2 million in the past 14 years. So I don't know where they expect to, let alone find the builders. Where they're going to find the bricks, where they're going to find the people to build these houses, let alone the planning system. It's completely a false promise. It's just not going to happen. Okay, guys, we are kind of running out of time, would you believe? Who do you reckon is going to be the next leader of the Tory party? Okay, what's left of it? Because let's be honest, some of the big guns are gone.
Not much to choose from, is there?
Well, no, there's not 120 of them. So
it's a massive. They've got a massive decision because clearly the vote of reform shows that a lot of people in the public have gone to the right. So are they going to be tempted with a Suella Braverman, who I think would be appalling, or will they? will they go back to a more centrist person like Jeremy Hunt, who just squeezed in? I think I thought it'd be Penny Mordaunt, but of course she's lost her seat. So do you know what? I don't think it's a job to win. I remember William Hague getting a job, and I think in retrospect he would have been a pretty good prime minister. But he was up against Blair in his pomp, so he's never going to win. If I was a young, ambitious Tory, I'd think we might not get in next time. Do I really want that job now? So I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know.
I'll be honest with you. Is it Tugel? How do you say his name? The ex-army guy?
Oh yeah,
Tugendhat. On Tugendhat.
That's it. I think he's top draw. I know myself. Who knows? Go on. Who do you reckon then, Ian? Best of a bad bunch?
Jeremy Hunt. I think he'll be acceptable. Suella Braverman's too far right. But she's going to be in the frame, isn't she? But there's no one there. Cleverly, Homesec, been hearing him this morning. No good. There's no charismatic leader.
Well, let's be honest. Jeremy Hunt's not a charismatic leader.
No,
again, he's a kind of a
you don't have anyone. The best thing that could happen somehow in the future is that Farage went back to the Conservative Party.
I can't see that happening myself.
He wants to replace the Tories. He said that over I think he doesn't want a big part of the Tories. He wants to replace them, which is
okay. Right, we are kind of running out of time. So Neil, so you're saying as well, Jeremy Hunt. Ian saying Jeremy Hunt. Sam, you're saying who are you saying? Next leader.
You know what? I think James Cleverly is not a bad shout actually. I don't know if he's got in. I don't know if any of these people got in.
Cleverly.
I reckon Tom Toodlegoo, whatever his name is.
Well.
And there's Mrs. Mean behind you as well. Hello, morning, Mrs. Mean.
Yeah, she's here, just moving the papers.
Okay, just very quickly. I know this is a bit of a side because I bet none of you have picked out the best. Have any of you done the pick of the punchlines?
No.
I tell you what, Mark, I will do the best pick of the punchline. You and Ian's debate with the Gloucester leaders, that was tremendous.
That's very kind of you. But I'm actually going to say, let's move the comment as we're talking elections very quickly. The American election. Biden, will he go?
Yes.
We all know he should go, but will he go?
Yes, definitely.
Well, I read this morning at about 3:00 that a lot of the big donors are pulling out, and in America, money talks. The person in charge of Disney, big Democrat supporters, won't give any money if Biden stays on the ticket, and if they run out of money, they're going to have even more chance of losing the election. So I think he will. His wife's got to do it for him. They're calling it elder abuse in America. They're calling it elder abuse.
I think it's sort of elderly abuse. I mean, they should let the poor man stand down. Yeah. I think it's her. I think she likes
stand up, let alone stand down.
Neil, what do you think?
I think there was I'm sure I read a story during the week that he was considering not standing, and I think. But who else did they put in there?
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's the problem.
Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom. There's your name.
Michelle Obama, I reckon Michelle Obama is the only person who could put Trump in his place. Really good. He would not be able to compete with her. She's such an intelligent, articulate, bright, woman.
She doesn't want it. She doesn't want it. She's been
you can't blame her. Hey guys, unfortunately, we are running out of time. I'll tell you who I think the winner is at the end of the day. And that really is the electoral system in a way, because ultimately we've all had a vote. We've all had the opportunity to have a say. The people have spoken and we have a new government. And so, ultimately we live in a democracy and we should all be very grateful for that, because lots of other people don't. And I think that's the best place to end. So I'd just like to say thank you ever so much, my fantastic panel, for this election special again, coming back so soon. Where did that 6 weeks go, guys? Bloody hell. My sponsors, Hazelwood's Accountants and Business Advisors, and we really couldn't do the show without them. And all of you for watching. If you like the show, please like, share and subscribe. And we'll be back again next week with the normal format. But for now, remember, it's all in the punchline. Bye.